Hello, everyone. This is your Friendly Neighborhood podcast. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Kyle Swope, and joining me is my co-host, Colin Donato. Colin, how you doing?
Not bad, Kyle.
Cool beans. Today is our highly anticipated review of Spider-Man No Way Home, as you can see if you're watching the video in my Spidey attire. So, I'm really excited. I'm going to take this mask off because I can hardly see anything. Alrighty, so, Colin, let's start this thing off. What did you think of Spider-Man No Way Home?
Well, let me start this off by saying I saw Spider-Man No Way Home 10 times in theaters. Definitely more than the average person sees one movie in the theaters.
Yep.
I think I kind of had a problem seeing it that many times. But
Was it like an addiction?
there's one time I saw it twice in one day. I saw it at 4 o'clock, and then that showing ended at 6 something, and then I went and saw it at 6:30.
That's fantastic. Wow. So you just watched it back to back for what? Because that movie was almost 3 hours long, right?
It was 2 hours and 20 something minutes, so not
Okay.
too far to the 3 hour border, but
It was still pretty lengthy, but yeah, definitely crazy. But I mean, other than seeing it 10 times, what else? And did you like it? I mean, I'm sure I don't have to ask that question since you've seen it 10 times.
obviously I liked it so much that I went and saw it that many times. But there's so much to say about this movie.
That's true.
It was it honestly it was such a roller coaster ride of a movie, which I know is what who was it? What Martin Scorsese badly compared Marvel movies to roller coasters, but I'm comparing this in a good way to roller coasters.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I'll go ahead and reveal my stance, okay? I think Spider-Man No Way Home is one of the greatest superhero films ever. I'm not saying it's the greatest, but I'm saying it is one of the greatest. It stands in my head, the Hall of Fame of the best superhero movies, ever. The reason why, specifically, is because it offered a lot of really original content, as well as providing a crap ton of fan service, and told a very fantastic Spider-Man story, while simultaneously pleasing the fans. And spoiler alert, although you've probably been spoiled by this by now already, Toby and Andrew come back, which is fantastic. Literally everyone wanted to see that. So yeah, they did a great job all around, really good. So yes, now Colin, you've seen it 10 times, so I'm gonna let you take the lead if you want on what aspect we want to tackle first. I've only seen it once, by the way. Disclaimer. But it was fantastic.
So going with what you said about how it tells a really good story with so much going on, there's a lot going on in this movie. It's only 2.5 hours, and they fit a lot into this. You introduce 5 villains, you have to pretty much reintroduce the multiverse to a larger audience, people who didn't watch Loki and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to set up both of the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Spider-Man. You have to introduce so much and do so much, and they did it so well. The pacing was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And the story was so good when they had so much going on. It was pretty much Tom Holland's Spider-Man's origin story.
Pretty much, which is I think it's really interesting with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because I remember when we first saw him, they were kind of everyone was talking about they just glaze over his origin because everyone knows it so well. But it's really interesting to think now, because after the events of this movie, again, big spoiler, Aunt May dies, which, might I add, I don't know if I called this when we were going through the Spider-Man trailer a few months ago, but I did call that Aunt May was going to die, and I was correct. So I was both happy and sad because I was right, but it was also a really sad moment. I'm getting on a tangent here. But Aunt May dying and saying the whole great power comes great responsibility thing, it was really interesting and different because it told the Spider-Man story very well, but it changed the characters' roles around. But it makes me think, so if Uncle Ben didn't die with great power comes great responsibility and say that, first of all, did he die in a significant way? When I say significant way, I mean after he got the Spider-Man powers? So I have a lot of Uncle Ben questions, because there's that, and there's also what happened. Because I'm sure we are all well aware that Peter Parker Spider-Man let the bad guy get away who ended up killing Uncle Ben. So it's crazy because it's like, did any of that happen then? Because if Aunt May's the one who told him with great power comes great responsibility, then what was changed in the MCU in terms of Spider-Man's origin and things like that? That's my biggest question. It's not a complaint at all.
My guess for that.
What was that?
Let's say my guess for that is probably Uncle Ben didn't really exist in Peter's life, or when he did, it was probably like a very small role. Like he died at a younger age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really hoping. I know
Like when
that
Peter was like a little kid or something.
Yeah, I know that Disney Plus is coming out with that Spider-Man Freshman Year series. That's supposed
Yeah, I forgot.
yeah. So I'm hoping that answers those type of questions, because this is a very new origin story that's still very familiar now. But back to the point I was bringing up originally, people complained about in like Homecoming, they just glaze over the origin story. That's because the entire like Infinity War arc, this whole first arc of Spider-Man, okay, which was Civil War, Homecoming, Infinity War, Endgame, Far From Home, and No Way Home, all of those movies are all still his origin story. Because where we leave him at the end of the movie, he has gone from Spider-Boy to Spider-Man, okay? Like, he's kind of reached that level of maturity where he can, act and have the moral compass of, a regular adult hero, because he's been through a lot at this point. But yeah, again, just very well crafted, very uniquely done. They could have gone wrong so many places in this movie, and they didn't, which makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Because I know if I was trying to write a story like this, I would probably do something very like controversial or edgy that people wouldn't appreciate, which they still kind of did, I guess, in this movie. But just no one hated it.
They did it well.
Yeah, they did it well. What else? But yeah, it was just such a good movie. I would like to take a moment right now, just because this is the biggest thing. But Toby and Andrew, okay? I want to know your thoughts and your opinions on just that whole thing and the reveal and, all of that.
I'm still like almost 100% sure that Marvel like leaked those images on purpose to build up hype for the movie. Like there's like they've been so like every other movie has been like so tight with like no leaks and stuff. And like something this big getting leaked, like definitely they did that on purpose to like build up hype, which I'm fine with.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But oh my gosh, seeing them on all three of them on screen together, like I remember opening night, and they open up the portal, and like you just see the bigger eye Spider-Man, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's Andrew Garfield, and the whole theater just starts like screaming and clapping.
Yeah,
like it was one of the best movie experiences ever.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was so good. Surprisingly, when I saw the movie, there was a bigger round of applause for Andrew coming onto the scene than for Toby.
Yeah, there was.
But I also
because he was in the spider suit still. I think that's what.
Yeah, it could have been. And I knew
Toby just came in and looked like a cool youth pastor.
I know, which that was a fantastic joke. I loved that so much. Cool youth pastor. But I know when Toby came in, it was very like dramatic and built up, as where when Andrew came in, it's like I don't think they did this very well personally as a big Spider-Man fan, but they tried to make it look like this could be Tom Holland until he runs up, gets really close, and then just jumps in and unmasks himself immediately. And people just start freaking out, which I think personally that created a better reaction than just dramatically revealing Toby. And I think that's part of the reason why. But Andrew Garfield, though, I gotta say, like, I was most excited for Tobey Maguire to come back. Okay, it's Tobey Maguire costume. Okay, because I mean, I'm one of those nostalgic people. I'm a sucker for that. Not that I still like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. Don't get me wrong. But after seeing Andrew Garfield with other Spider-Man, that's the Spider-Man I wanted to see more from. Like, I had more time watching that Spider-Man, a better time watching that Spider-Man on screen than any of the other Spider-Man.
Yeah, it shows you what like Andrew Garfield could have done if he had better writing for the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, I'm just glad that Andrew Garfield came back and had a good time, because if you ever like look at interviews back around when he was Spider-Man and he was recast and Tom Holland and all that stuff, he kind of left it on nowhere. He was just kind of really disappointed with the whole thing, which as a a fanboy, I mean, that kind of like breaks my heart in a way. But then when you hear him, like, let me use another example. Ben Affleck, whenever you hear about how bad his Batman experience was and how he doesn't want to come back, and I loved Ben Affleck's Batman so much, but it hurts to hear that because then it's like, oh, he doesn't want to be this character we love him as so much.
Mm-hmm.
But then after the whole thing happened, and Andrew specifically, hearing him talk about how great the experience was, I loved hearing that because I really want to see Andrew come back in some other way, shape, or form after this movie.
I guarantee he will. After like, especially the one thing, it's like he's like, man, I want to fight an alien.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like they were leading up to something. Like Tobey Maguire, like he's like his story's pretty much done. Like there's not much more to do with his story. But Andrew Garfield, like there's a door open for so many stories to tell with him.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, I think it would be nice to see just like a little bit more of what happened to Andrew after the Amazing Spider-Man. Not Amazing Spider-Man, what am I saying? After Spider-Man 3, I think it'd be cool to see a little bit more of what happened to Toby and seeing like how him and MJ's relationship evolved. Because we kind of left them off in the end of Spider-Man 3, the very last scene, where it was hopeful that him and MJ would get back together. And then in the movie, we find out that they do eventually get back together, which is fantastic because everyone wanted to see that. But that's just kind of it. We don't know. Did they get married? Are they still dating, or like what's going on with them? How is their relationship evolved?
Yeah, because it's been a long time since. I mean, that was what 2007. That movie's like in
2007. But yeah, I know. So that's the only thing left I wanted to see from Toby that I didn't get to see. But like you said, Andrew, they never really closed his arc in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So there's still a lot more story that they can tell with him, and that's a story I would really like to see continued.
Mm-hmm.
While we're talking about the 3 Spider-Man, okay, do me a favor. I want you to rank the 3 Spider-Man, okay, from do worst to best.
Worst to best. Oh,
actually, no, do best to worst. Do best to worst. We'll do it like that.
best to worst. I don't. I'm real. Oh. Well, my personal favorite's Andrew Garfield. So number one's Andrew Garfield for me. Even be like like I've been an Andrew Garfield fan. I've been defending him for years, and then when all of a sudden people are like, "Wow, the Amazing Spider-Man movies aren't terrible," I'm like, I've been saying this since I was like 12 years old. And now everybody's starting to say this. I think people kind of like hopped on a bandwagon on Andrew Garfield during No Way Home and like a little bit before.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But definitely, I'd say Andrew Garfield. I don't know who to put for second because Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland are like, if Tom Holland has like another trilogy, I think he could become maybe the best Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, see, this is where you get really controversial though too, because no matter who you pick, 1 or 2 groups of fans are going to hate you.
Yeah, exactly. I just have to tie them. I can't rank one over the other. It's hard.
You took the easy way out. How dare you? Because for me personally, and I have this whole case. I've had this case made up for years now. I'm just going to make it right now. So, best Spider-Man, if you ask me personally, Tom Holland, okay? Second best Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. Third best, Andrew. Now, hold on. Before we get all defensive, okay? I love Andrew, and like I said, he was my favorite Spider-Man to see back in No Way Home, okay? I also loved Andrew's movies. But I still think that I basically blame Sony. I think Andrew Garfield was good casting, and was a really good job. And I love The Amazing Spider-Man 2 specifically. The Amazing Spider-Man 1, it was fine. It just, the tone was really weird. And I didn't like the Spider-Man costume that much. But yeah, so Andrew was really good, and I think his Spider-Man at the time was awesome. And I also think that Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker at the time was great. So I think Andrew did a better Peter Parker. No, sorry. I'm getting all the names and things confused. Andrew did a better Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire, I think, did a better Peter Parker. But there was also a higher emphasis put on Peter Parker in the Sam Raimi trilogy.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I drew it before Tom Holland came along. Because Tom Holland plays both Peter Parker and Spider-Man incredibly well into one just like unified character person. So for that reason, that's why I put him at number 1. Not necessarily because of movies, just because of what they bring to the table. And the reason I put Toby above Andrew is basically nostalgia. Let's be real. So if you want to discount my opinion, that's fine because it's nostalgia based. I really don't care. But anyways, yeah.
I think Tom Holland could become like the best Spider-Man. There's no doubt that he's, especially after the end of this movie, his acting in this movie was fantastic too.
Oh yeah. Tom Holland's
Like
definitely a good
especially
actor.
one of my favorite scenes is the shot where it's like the giant billboard with J. Jonah Jameson on it,
Mm-hmm.
like talking about the tragedy that just happened,
Mm-hmm.
and like Tom Holland just standing there and the rain's coming down on him. That's one of the
Yeah.
coolest shots.
That is very beautiful, but very tragic at the same time. Um, but anyway, something I would really like to talk about next, okay, is the villains, okay? Because there's a lot we can talk about here, a lot to dive into. Who should we? Let's talk about the most boring villain first, okay? At least this is, in my opinion, the most boring villain we saw back, Sandman. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I hate. I know. I can't think of the actor's name right now. It's skipping my mind.
Some.
But
I think his last name is Church or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't
Oh,
remember his name either.
yeah, it's something church. I know you're.
Yeah.
But I hated how you stand the whole time. I know
Mm-hmm.
because the actor had scheduling conflicts and like couldn't be there, so he could only do like voiceovers.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't like the whole sanding the whole time,
Yeah.
and his motives were really unclear too. Like he was like a good guy at first, like fine with Spider Man, but then like he sent a like when Spider Man sent like Electro to the prison thing.
Mm-hmm.
He like lost it and got mad, and then all of a sudden he's like spinning giant tornadoes,
Mm-hmm.
and his motives were just really confused. Didn't really make a lot of sense.
Exactly. I agree 100% because first of all, not Spider-Man, what was I saying? Sandman was never necessarily a bad guy in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah,
Cuz really he was I would consider him in movies one of the first misunderstood villains where he committed crimes, he was bad and stuff solely because he was trying to get money for his daughter who had some type of illness. And they couldn't pay for it. So it's like he's not justified in his actions per se, but people can understand why he did that.
Mhm.
So that being said, like having him with all these actual bad guys didn't make any sense to me. Just seemed really and then it made sense that he was just willing to okay, fine, cure me type of thing because he just wanted to get back to his dimension. That all made sense until, like you said at the end, he just kind of went berserk out of like nowhere, which didn't make sense with his
Yeah.
character. So everything kind of made sense up until then. But yeah, so Sandman was just meh. I also didn't like that he was CGI the whole time. That felt really weird to me. But yeah, so which one do you want to talk about next? Unless you have more to say about
I
Sandman.
guess we could probably go from like the worst picture to like the best. So I'd say probably Lizard next.
I agree. Yeah.
So one thing I didn't really like about the Lizard in this movie is how he looked. I hated the CGI on him. That's one of my like biggest pet peeves in this whole movie is how the Lizard looked in this.
Mm-hmm.
I love his look a lot more in the Amazing Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it just felt too much. I don't know, CGI,
Mm-hmm.
and like the face looked completely different. Like he has more of a flat face in Amazing Spider-Man. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
this one's kind of more of a he actually like a visible nose and stuff, and more scales and stuff. I just didn't like the look of it. And
Yeah.
again, like the actor couldn't be there to do it. He was doing voiceovers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with those two, they couldn't really make. There was nothing that Marvel could really do with them because the actors had scheduling conflict. So they were kind of just pushed to the side.
Yeah. That.
Also, the whole they kind of downed his motives a little bit. Like they kind of like made a joke of like the whole turning in the people in the lizards things. Meanwhile, like in Amazing Spider-Man, like he wanted to cure himself and kind of wanted like cure humanity of like all illnesses and stuff instead of just like turning people into lizards for fun.
Yeah. Thing here. But yeah, see, I don't. His motives, I think, in the Amazing Spider-Man were kind of weak though too. Personally, that's kind of why I like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 a little better. Because the tone and the villain just kind of because it made sense in the Amazing Spider-Man initially. Like, yeah, he wanted to cure himself, so he did the lizard thing, went berserk. But it didn't make sense to me afterwards why he wanted to keep doing the lizard thing and why he wanted to turn everyone else into lizards. So I don't know. Again, he was also kind of weak, but I still think it was a little more exciting seeing him back than Sandman.
Mhm.
But yeah, because Lizard didn't do much in the whole movie, quite honestly.
Yeah, I know he escaped. He like threw Peter into the hotel thing at one point, and then he showed up at the end. There really wasn't much. Yeah, there wasn't much there.
Yeah. So again, yeah, it was just kind of meh. I think the next most interesting villain they brought in was, now again, I want to know your opinion on this as I say it. The next most interesting one that they brought in was Electro.
I loved Jamie Foxx turning as Electro. I liked
Mm-hmm.
Electro so much more in this movie
Mm-hmm.
than Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like I liked Jamie Foxx Electro in Amazing
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man 2 when he was like the villain, not when he was the like nerdy Spider-Man freak fan. I didn't really
Yeah.
like him as that. But I loved him as the villain, especially in the scene where they're like in Times Square and they're fighting and stuff, and he's like just really confused. I
Mm-hmm.
love that, but I loved him so much in this movie. They did him a lot better, I think. And Jamie Foxx,
Yeah.
I love like some of his like quick like one liners were hilarious too.
Mm-hmm.
Like the tree thing when Ned's talking about the tree, and when he makes the comment about the Legos,
See, I don't remember that because I've only seen it once, and that was like 3 months ago.
and then of course my like favorite line in the whole movie where he's so disappointed that Andrew wasn't black.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That's funny.
That
Well,
that that was one of the funniest things in the whole movie.
Oh yeah. Well, but the thing that makes me excited though is because they allude to somewhere down the line doing Miles Morales, which they kind of did that in
Yeah.
Spider-Man: Homecoming as well. But I love Miles Morales as a character so much. I really, really want to see him live action show up somewhere. And we know that character sells tickets. Okay, puts people in movies. Like, let me rephrase that. Puts people in the theater, brings people to the theater, because of how well Into the Spider-Verse went.
Yeah.
So yeah, really pumped for that. Really hope we get to see a Miles Morales. But yeah, I agree. I liked Electro a lot. Better in this movie, personality wise, anyways. This is gonna sound really weird because I know most people don't agree with me. I like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 character design, the blue Electro, better personally.
Oh yeah, I like it. I like the blue a lot more too.
Oh yeah, because it just seems more.
It looks cooler.
Yeah, it just seems more modern and stylized. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because he basically, other than that one shot that was in the trailer where we saw like the Electro stuff come from his face, he did not look like a supervillain at all. He was dressed like an electrical guy the whole time.
He looked like a construction worker. He didn't really, and he had the arc reactor on him.
Yeah. So really, I wasn't impressed with the redesign for Electro. Other than that, that's the only complaint I have. Because he didn't have a real big motive again in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. They still, I don't know. Let me put it like this: they could work with him better because his character was not the best written in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, so it was really easy to go up from there. It didn't take a whole lot of hard thinking or effort. But yeah, Electro was pretty solid. Who do you think is the next most interesting villain? Which leaves only like two options.
Well,
That I know who you're gonna pick.
it's Doc Ock.
Yes, definitely.
I was very happy to see him return because
Mm-hmm.
Alfred Molina, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, Molina, something like that.
He's such a good villain in Spider-Man 2,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of like probably like the second best Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
As most people would say, it's second best. Not my personal second favorite, but most people would say it's like the second best
Wait,
Spider-Man
hold up.
movie after No Way Home, probably.
What would you put in first place? You say No Way Home? Do you not
It's
wanna answer that?
it's not a solid. It's not everyone. My personal favorite is Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
See, I respect that opinion because it's not, in my opinion, it's not a crazy opinion, but it's not popular either. So I respect that. I don't necessarily agree, but I respect it.
Thank you.
Because at least the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was fun. You know what I'm saying?
And the amazing chemistry between Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker is just
Oh yeah,
wonderful in that movie.
good stuff. And then you know who's ugly crying? Andrew Garfield's ugly crying. Yeah, it was fantastic. But yeah, anyways, I digress. No Way Home. Doc Ock. Yes, Alfred Molina. Great seeing him back. He literally, Here's the thing I think was really good, especially for the original Spider-Man trilogy characters. So like Sandman, Doc Ock, Green Goblin. All three of those actors did a fantastic job. It's almost like they picked up right where they left off, and it was like perfect. Their characters seemed exactly, personality-wise anyways, like what they were before. It's like none of that magic was lost.
It was nice seeing Otto Octavius cured finally. Because at the end of like Spider-Man 2, he kind of becomes good again, but of course he dies like right after that, after he like saves the city.
Oh yeah.
So it was good to see him like truly become a good person again.
Well, and then he was the first person cured too, and he didn't even like fight the other Spider-Man after that battle on the bridge with Tom Holland.
Yeah.
So I think it was really cool seeing him because again, that character is not a bad guy. The AI and his tentacles were just kind of crazy. So as soon as that was fixed, he was back to normal, like no problem at all. So seeing him actually be a good guy for longer than like 2 minutes to destroy this big machine he made was really cool.
We know who's next now.
Yes, obviously we have the big bad who, well, let me put something here. William Dafoe, okay? He took everything that made the Green Goblin so good in the Sam Raimi trilogy, and he basically like doubled it, okay? To making him like probably, I would go as far to say Green Goblin is my favorite villain in the entire MCU that we've seen. I mean, he's not from the MCU, but in an MCU movie, my favorite villain.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because he does the most like character, personal, like terrible things to make you hate him. But
Yeah, and he's just evil for being evil. Like he has no reason to be evil. He's just evil.
Exactly.
Just like he was in Spider-Man. It's like the Goblin sickness or whatever kind of drives him mad.
Oh yeah.
And oh my gosh, William Dafoe, perfect. There's no other word to define it. Just perfect as him. And it really shows how Spider-Man's arch nemesis is the Green Goblin. Especially after he killed Aunt May, he almost killed MJ. He just like does everything to make his life miserable.
Oh yeah. Well then, if you think back to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, actually think of Green Goblin as a character in every movie we've seen him in. So that's including the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Okay, here's what he does. Okay, which makes him just a terrible person. Specifically to Spider-Man, but we all love Spider-Man and relate with Spider-Man. So when something bad happens to Spider-Man, we almost feel like that bad thing happens to us as well. If that makes sense. At least that's my theory. But Green Goblin, in Spider-Man, okay, he almost kills Aunt May. He throws MJ off a bridge along with a train cart full of children, okay? He also gets into Harry's head and makes him go crazy, which is, like his best friend. And then in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, Green Goblin, I guess you could split the blame 50-50, kills Gwen Stacy. And then in this movie, William Dafoe, Green Goblin, comes back, and he kills Aunt May. And so, yeah, like, you don't mess with Green Goblin. I mean, he's just going to, like, kill everyone you love. And then the iconic line, too, first we attack his heart, which came back in the thing, in No Way Home, which they did, and they succeeded very well. Oh, yeah, you mentioned, too, he also threw Zendaya MJ almost to her death. Which, let's take a moment and talk about that scene for a minute. That scene, my sister actually called that Andrew Garfield was going to come down and save her. And
I think everybody knew from that when after seeing it in the trailer, it was like, oh, he's like Andrew Garfield's in it, he's going to save her. Everybody kneed that, I think.
I think everyone's so glad that happened, though, too, because that then redeems him as a character, because the big tragic thing that happened to him that kind of changed the way he was basically forever after he failed to save Gwen Stacy, and he essentially caused her death, if that makes sense. Like, her cause of death was Spider-Man. He didn't throw her off the clock tower or anything, but if he wouldn't have webbed her,
he blames himself because he failed to save her.
Yeah, and then the fact that he was able to redeem himself by saving MJ, who was in the same situation, was just very rewarding. Which, I think is just really good. Just fantastic.
Like you like seeing him crying about it, like almost made me tear up. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
man, I was like, that was actually that was really like it made me happy but sad at like, the same time.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I really like the memes we got from that scene, where they just took a meme from a movie or a scene from a movie when someone's falling, and then it's just Andrew Garfield dive, and
The
then
audience.
yeah, I know, and then he's holding them crying. Oh, so good, so good. I love that. Good memes. Speaking of memes, this movie is chocked full of memes. Okay, and that's another thing I love about it so much. It goes into with the fan service. Because we get two instances where all the Spider-Man point at each other. Now me being a huge meme guy, I think it was great that they did it. But when I was watching the movie, I didn't notice it actually, and I think the reason why is because they didn't really strike the same positions that they did in the actual like original meme picture.
Yeah, they're kind of like all on a line almost, like they're just like in a straight line almost, kind of, and they're all just like
Yeah,
pointing to
because
their sides.
the two times it happens is once they're in a circle and they're all pointing around, and then the other time it happens, which is before that, that's when Ned says Peter, and they're like Peter, Peter, and they're all like pointing at each other to figure out which Peter it is. But because here's even when they took the live action picture that went really like viral like a month or so ago, even in that they're not doing the correct poses per se. They're in the right positions, but they're not posing correctly. Andrew Garfield was posing correctly, but everyone else is only pointing with one finger. And because the original picture, when it was taken from the '60s cartoon, is just the two Spider-Men pointing at each other. I think one's Chameleon. I haven't seen the episode. That just makes sense for that villain to be the villain of that episode with two Spider-Men. But they're just pointing at each other. Okay. So when they redid it and they put the live-action Spider-Man in it and they dropped Andrew Garfield in, Andrew Garfield was pointing at both of them, but the other Spider-Man were pointing at each other still. So they didn't quite do the meme exactly the way it was. That might be why I didn't actually notice it until afterwards when people were like, oh, look, they did the meme. And then I was like, oh, okay, I guess they did.
Yeah, I guess it's different because it's with three of them. It's kind of harder to do that exact like pointing thing.
Yeah, and it would be hard to make up an example where the two Spider-Men are pointing at each other, and then the one Spider-Man is just kind of pointing at both of them. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I guess it'd be really hard to put that in the plot to make it work out exactly that way. But I'm just critiquing things here now. But they also have
Another.
I'm something of a scientist.
I think we're
myself.
about to say the same thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I absolutely loved that meme. Well, I love the meme, but I also love that he said it. And I think the best part was he just comes right out and he's like, I'm something of a scientist myself. Like, there wasn't a huge build-up. It's just like out of nowhere it felt like. And I think that's why I appreciated that, because that's my sense of humor. But, yeah, that was really good. Do they have any other memes?
I'm trying to think of any other like meme references to the originals.
Because those were the two big ones.
Not that I can like think of right now.
Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now either. But either way, I love the memes. I know we've gotten off on a big tangent here. But we're talking about Green Goblin. And yeah, William Dafoe, Green Goblin, awesome job. I just keep thinking back to the scene when they're in the hallway at the apartment building, at like Happy's apartment building, when he's on top of him, punching him in the face, and he's just laughing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Gosh, that was.
I know, so good. I don't know.
He just and he just beats the crap out of him.
I know.
Like he destroys Spider-Man. Like his strength is definitely he definitely seems more powerful in this one than he did in the original Spider-Man. Like he breaks his ribs and he's just oh man, he was brutal.
Yeah, definitely. But another thing too you brought up, I don't think I addressed this yet, but you mentioned how Green Goblin, William Dafoe, just evil for the sake of being evil because of mental stuff. Okay. I wish we still had more villains like that, because I'm sort of getting tired, because it feels like every villain has to have some type of sympathy, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just getting tired of just the same old thing over and over again. Like, Loki is one of the most... They keep bringing in more reasons why you should be sympathetic for the character. Thanos, his planet died, so, now he thinks he's doing the world a favor by snapping and killing everybody. Other villains. Oh, I mean, I guess. I mean, if you want to consider the villain of WandaVision as what's her face, Wanda herself, she has a
Oh
reason
yeah.
for enslaving people for however long she did.
hmm
It's like
And
everyone
then
has
more
their
recently, kind of Wenwu and Shang Chi, you kind of had sympathy towards him a
yeah,
little bit.
exactly. It's like, and I don't have a problem with that. It's just my problem is that there's just too many characters that are like that now.
Mm.
It's like, can we have some villains that I just straight up hate that I'm not sympathetic for? That's kind of where I'm at. Which they used to do that really well, like in the early days and like in the 2000 superhero movies, but not so much anymore. Um, so I sort of like that we're reverting back to that with Green Goblin, but I mean that might just be me. But either way, I was gonna say William Dafoe though, if he has not gotten an Oscar yet, he deserves one. Maybe he can take Will Smith's if his Oscar gets taken away for slapping Chris Rock. Another great meme. I'm just bringing that up because it's relevant, not because it has anything to do with what's going on right now. But anyways, yeah, William Dafoe deserves an Oscar regardless. I'm disappointed this movie was not nominated for anything.
I think it was nominated for best VFX. I think that was it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because usually like these like superhero movies like this aren't really nominated for Oscars, as we know, like in the past and stuff. It's kind of hard for these kind of movies to get nominated.
Yeah.
But I don't see why it was nominated for best VFX because I definitely didn't have like Marvel's best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like there was some spots where you're like, oh, like the Andrew coming in, the
Mm-hmm.
CGI on that was a little weird. The CGI on Lizard was a little weird. There was definitely some weird CGI moments.
Yeah. I see. I love in movies practical effects because I know it's cheaper to do CGI though too, but I'm just so tired of seeing bad CGI and everything. I feel like there was a point in like the like like late 2000s where CGI in my opinion peaked, and then now they're relying too heavily on CGI and everything I think looks terrible. Like
Yeah.
if you ask me personally, I think Doc Ock, Alfred Molina, his tentacles and everything looked way better in Spider-Man 2 than in No Way Home.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Um but anyways, yeah. Crazy stuff, CGI. One more thing about Green Goblin. I have a lot to say because I think it was just really awesome. I'm disappointed he did not wear his mask for like 95% of the screen time he had.
Yeah.
Because now I'm sort of in the minority here, I guess, but I am in love with the Green Goblin costume, the original like 2002 one. I just think it's like it's not super comic accurate, but I just think it looks so awesome.
It's original. That's what's cool about it.
Yeah.
It's an original outfit that was designed for the movie.
Definitely. And it's a little bit over the top too, which I also like. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just disappointed I didn't get to see more of that. But anyways, we should move on to something else. I know we just fanboyed about all the characters now, but what else should we dive into that we feel like is worth bringing up about this movie?
I don't think we've talked about the ending much yet.
You're right, we haven't. So, do you want to start us off with your opinions and thoughts?
Yeah. So as we know, like pretty much anyone who's seen the movie knows that like Peter Parker caused this whole multiversal problem by like asking for like everyone's memory to be deleted of who was Spider-Man because Mysterio kind of ruined his life.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes to Doctor Strange and he's like, "Hey, can you fix this?" And he screws it up by asking Doctor Strange like so many questions and asking him like keeps adding on to the spell. So then at the end he has to fix the whole spell, and instead of everyone forgetting who Spider-Man was, everyone forgets who Peter Parker is. And it's kind of sad how even like Doctor Strange is affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's even upset that he's gonna forget who he is. And then all this like him and MJ's like final talk together.
Mm-hmm.
That was so sad. And they're the whole like last 10 minutes were so sad of the movie.
Oh yeah.
When he goes into the cafe to talk to MJ, like I knew he wasn't gonna tell her, but still part of me was like, man, I really hope that he's gonna like tell her everything.
Yeah.
And then he just walks away because he realizes that like their lives are so much better without him in it. Like they're safe, they're out of danger, they're not going to get hurt.
Which is also really
And
sad
then
to
of
think
course,
about.
huh?
So that's also something really sad to think about.
Yeah.
It's like these people's
And
lives
then
are
of
going to be
course,
better without me in it. Like that's really
yeah,
depressing.
yeah, man, yeah, that is really sad. And then of course we have he's all alone now.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Spider-Man's always been kind of a loner and by himself, and now he truly is he has no one else. He just has himself, and that's it.
No one else. The
I'm
next
guessing
Spider-Man title. Actually, no, it has to have
Spider-Man
home.
all
Never
alone.
mind. That was stupid. It has to have home in it. Yeah, I'm losing it.
Spider-Man all by myself.
That's a song by Eric Carmen from the 70s.
Or
Celine Dion did a
what
cover of
was it? I'm trying to think what was this. Oh yeah. So then he's all alone, and he doesn't have all the advancements he did before. He's building everything himself. Like we see, he has a new suit. He's using one of my favorite things was when he had the police tracker on his phone, and I was like, that's what I like to see. That's what I like in a Spider-Man. He's like, it's more practical now.
Yeah.
It's not. He doesn't have like all the Stark tech. He built his own suit. He's using a police tracker.
Yeah. Which that deals with a lot of complaints I've heard fans say too, that they don't like Tom Holland's Spider-Man because he's too like techie, too like Iron Man, Tony Stark type, which I completely understand that complaint. But the next time we see Tom Holland's Spider-Man, they're not going to be able to complain about that anymore. But yeah, I think some of the best movies have sad endings. So I'm trying to think of another movie that ends on a really low note. I mean, I guess Spider-Man 3 kind of does. Not that I'm trying to say that's a great movie. I mean, we debated previously that it's not as bad as a lot of people treat it. But still, it ends on sort of ends on the same note this movie does, where it ends really sad, but they give us hope. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 does that too, actually, come to think of it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah. So I thought that was really good. Again, it was really sad, the whole thing. Do you think, this is my personal question to you, do you think that Peter and MJ are going to eventually get back together, or do you think he's just going to completely like ditch him?
I really am unsure what they're going to do with that. Because of course I'd love this. I love Zendaya as MJ, and I love to see like the MJ and Peter back together. But I don't know how they would do it.
Yeah,
because they would have to re-meet, reintroduce themselves. There'd be a lot to do, and I feel like she's going she's going to MIT.
Yes,
and he's going to be staying in New York. So I really don't know how that would work.
Yeah. Ned though too, I'm going to miss a lot because Ned is literally Genki, and I love Genki.
Oh yeah, that's one thing I didn't like is how they kind of took Ned and made him into that character instead of using him for Miles Morales. But I do kind of like Ned.
Well, see, the problem with I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man in general, I think they borrowed almost too much from Miles Morales in making this Spider-Man. And what I mean by that is I feel like personality-wise, he was a little bit more like, I mean not exactly, but a little bit more like Miles Morales. He was also younger when they started seeing him in the MCU. And then also having his best friend being Ned Leeds, who they literally changed to be like almost 100% Genki from Miles Morales. It's like, I don't know. They're not leaving much space for Miles to hopefully show up in the MCU sometime.
Yeah, it'd definitely be a very different version than what we have in comics.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But anyways, yeah. It's very, very sad ending. I do, however, we only got a few glimpses of it, but from what I've seen, I do like the new suit he has.
Oh, I love the inspiration from Toby and Andrew's suits also in it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would love a live-action Into the Spider-Verse that was primarily starring those three Spider-Man. That would be fantastic, I think. Just a whole full-length 2 hours of those three Spider-Men just kind of goofing off, doing something important.
If they did it, they have to do it right.
Yeah.
They can't just like randomly meet up for some reason. They have to do it like like this was really well done because they were only in it for a short amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
and there was kind of like a bit enough explaining while they were in it. But like if they did like a big event like that, I think it'd be hard to explain in the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Possibly. But the fact that I think this would be a good time to do that because since no one really knows of Peter Parker, then it's not crazy for him to just go off for a little while. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So if they did that like really soon, I could see it pulling off and working and stuff. But I mean that's just kind of a luff and fluff idea. I haven't thought through it entirely yet, but either way, I think it'd be cool to see.
Talking end credit scenes though, there was really only one end credit scene in this movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, because the second one, of course, is the Multiverse of Madness teaser, which everyone's seen. It's on YouTube. It was on YouTube like a week after the movie came out, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't very long before.
Yeah, and then we have the what really disappointed me, and I was hoping, I was like, man, it'd be awesome to see Tom Hardy's Venom in the MCU, and then of course they give us that hope at the end, Let There Be Carnage, and then he just goes back to the Sony verse, but he leaves the symbiote, which
a drop of the symbiote.
Drop of it, which I'm so excited for because like what they've set up is perfect for him, like wanting to use a symbiote because like he's gonna be depressed, he's gonna be mad at what's happened, and the symbiote will be perfect to like take over for that because that's what it's power through that.
Definitely. But yeah, see, I think things are really open ended though, how they're gonna leave Tom Holland and stuff. Kind of like what you brought up before. I know this is a little bit off topic, but I swear I'm gonna bring it back in. So it's like I really want to see the symbiote and stuff, but I feel like this would be a really weird time to bring it in because we just got off of the whole what's it called. I almost feel like if we're going to start another trilogy, it would be a really weird note to start with the symbiote on the first movie. I feel like that would be a better plot to set up in a sequel. Just me personally, anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we don't know much of this new, even though it's the same Spider-Man, but it's still kind of like a new Spider-Man because he's changed so much. And the world's changed, of course, too. But we haven't really seen much of him yet. Now with all this happening, that I think it would just be really weird to do that as your first move with the new Spider-Man. I mean, that's just my personal thoughts.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think definitely in the sequel they could do it.
Yeah,
like maybe make it like half like the plot be that like the later half of the movie be him finding the symbiote and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention
who knows what the plan is.
Yeah, that little drop of symbiote though too is in Mexico?
Yeah.
So to get to Mexico from New York, that is going to take a very long time, especially for a piece of goo that's like the size of my finger. So I mean, I don't know. I think it would be a really good note to see him get the symbiote maybe at the end of a first movie or something like that. Or another idea I had. Because, in the comics, for like a good chunk of the 80s, for a few years, Spider-Man wore the black suit, right? So if they leaned into inspiration from that, and he wore the black suit, and it didn't make him evil immediately, and he wore it for the majority of, like, those movies, until he found out it was the enemy, and has that big moment where, he's got to get rid of it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
That could definitely work out. I could see that happening. So they could do the black suit soon, but not do Venom or make it evil. Which, that's another question I have, though, too. Because if Sony doesn't want them to use Venom, at least without collaborating with them, are they going to have to do another Venom collab to bring the symbiote back into Eddie Brock? Or is there going to be another Venom in the MCU? Because that doesn't make as much sense to have another Venom in the MCU.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, what if they have their own Eddie Brock? Or I wouldn't really want to see a different Eddie Brock. I like Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock. I would like to see him go against Tom Holland, but I don't.
Okay,
it's confusing how they'll do that.
What if Topher Grace's Eddie Brock comes back? No, I'm kidding. I'm pretty sure no one's asking for that. I think it'd be like a funny joke sometime. Just have Topher Grace in like one scene and then make a joke about him. That'd be funny. But yeah, I'm probably not a good call to bring him back as Venom. But yeah, I don't know. Again, a lot of open-ended questions. Like they left this really. I mean, they provided a lot of closure, but they left just as many doors open as they closed. I think, if that makes any sense. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing in this case. Just because I think it was just executed so well. But yeah, the end credit scene was interesting but disappointing, especially because my favorite part of Let There Be Carnage was the end credit scene. I know we're going to review that soon, so I guess little spoilers to my opinion on that. We'll get to it later. But, yeah, so, I mean, it was fine. But, yes, any final... Well, I guess I won't say final, because I don't want to close the door on us quite yet. But any more thoughts on Spider-Man before we move on to rating?
I mean, I hit all the high stuff I wanted to say, like all the big things I wanted to say.
Yeah. I kind of did
I
too.
don't think there's anything.
Like, I could nitpick some things, but I really, like, they're not big enough or important enough for me to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are important
that's
enough,
what
I brought them up already. So, do you want to move on to ratings?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Cool beans. So, Colin, 1 out of 10. 10 being the Mona Lisa. 1 being the finger painting you did in preschool that you gave to your mom that you stuck on the refrigerator. How would you put Spider-Man No Way Home?
I would say 9 out of 10.
Nice. See, I'm either 9 or 10. I really can't decide which one is closer. I guess I'm going to give it a 10. That's sort of for strategic reasons because I'm being a little biased here, okay? And that reason is because I haven't informed you viewers on that yet. We're changing our rating system ever so slightly. So Josh is going to give us his opinions. He just texted me it like last night. But he gives the movie an 8 out of 10. So if we have 8, 9, 10, we'll average that. We'll bring them together and we meet at 9. So, yes. Because I would not feel comfortable giving this thing anything lower than a 9. That's why I went with a 10.
Oh,
sort of.
Yeah. It's hard to find what's wrong with this movie because it's even seeing it like 10 times, every time I loved it. There was a time where I was like, because I wanted to see it because I loved it that much. I wanted to see it again.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, one thing we didn't talk about, like, the greatest scene in, like, superhero movie history.
Which one?
Okay, when they're all swinging together and swing off each other, and then they land, like, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah, on the Statue of Liberty.
Like, just seeing that scene 10 times, oh my gosh. Every time I was just like, this is so cool.
Oh, yeah, that was definitely a good scene. I don't know if you saw this. Apparently, now, I wasn't really watching the Oscars like a hawk or anything. I mean, my family had it on, and I wasn't really watching it regularly, but my sister said that apparently on Twitter, they voted for the fan favorite Oscar award type things.
Oh, yeah. They had, it was most, like, cheer worthy scene in the movie. Number 1 was
The Flash in
The Flash in Snyder Cut.
But this got number 2, which is like it's close because those are both absolutely fantastic scenes. I really would have a hard time picking one over the other between those two, but I'm surprised the people on Twitter voted Justice League ahead of Spider-Man. That's kind of what blows my mind there.
Yeah, that's what threw me away. But that Flash scene is really awesome, though. The music makes it so much better too.
Oh yeah. Well, I had explained to my little sister then because she hasn't seen Zack Snyder's Justice League. I was like, you got to understand what was going on. You have to understand the original Justice League cut that was terrible, and how there was basically nothing for the Flash to do other than save people really fast. And then you have to look at this one and realize how this character has purpose, and he fulfills his purpose in the movie by going back in time and stuff and saving everybody. But yeah. Anyways, I know we're going off on a tangent here, but yeah. So anyways, that all being said, the Friendly Neighborhood Podcast gives Spider-Man No Way Home a 9 out of 10, which is our highest rating we've given thus far as per our, like, what is this, like, somewhere between episode 10 and 12. I don't know at this point. I'm completely lost track.
I think.
Yeah. Either way, we're still early. This is our highest rating we've given thus far. But yes, good stuff. Good fun. Got anything else, Colin?
Well, I'm all good.
Alrighty, not a problem. Well, that being said, thank you guys all for joining us. This is the Friendly Neighborhood Podcast starring Kyle Swope and Colin Donato. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at FriendlyNeighborPod. The Spider-Man theme was originally composed by Bob Harris and covered by Jacob Swope for this episode. The Friendly Neighborhood Podcast is a Lumberjack media production. Thank you guys all for joining us. God bless you. God bless America. We will catch you later.